Welcome, parents and loved ones, to our Gaucho Parent Q&A program for parents and loved ones of continuing students. Imagine we're just letting you in through the doors right now. So folks are filing in. We have a little bit of information to share with you as you enter the room. So stay tuned to the screen for some information and responses to some of your questions in the registration. This is an important one. If you haven't been getting our parent newsletters, please look to the screen for information about how to sign up. We'll also make sure this is published on our website. And please check out the Gaucho Parents site as well while you're signing up. Again, thanks for attending our Gaucho Q&A. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We're just letting folks file in through the door. Just a few more informational slides. There were several questions about academic advising. We'll hear more about academics this afternoon. And definitely be sure that your student is familiar with their contacts for academic advising. We're also very excited to share, and a message went out to students, and you've probably seen it on Facebook if you're in a parent group, but Recreation Center, our climbing wall, pools, and our Campus Point Rental Center are open. Reservations are required for certain services, so be sure to encourage your student to check out these websites. And last but not least, a recording of this event, or rather resources about this event, including all of the links that you see in today's presentation, will be posted to the Student Affairs homepage, and that will take place by Friday afternoon. So please check back at SA, as in studentaffairs.ucsb.edu for that information. I'm going to skip to one of the other popular questions, which was, when is Oprah speaking? So you may have a student graduating this quarter, or you might be looking to celebrate with the class of 2021, and we welcome you there. Oprah is speaking, and we're celebrating our graduates from 10 to 11 a.m. on Saturday, June 12th at 2021. And the URL to our commencement homepage is published below. With that, we'll get started with our formal program, the Gaucho Parent Q&A. I want to welcome you and thank you so much for taking the time with us this afternoon and evening to learn more about what's going on campus and our plans for the summer and especially fall 2021. Please note that the subtitles for the program are generated by AI, so we apologize in advance for any minor inconsistencies. And some webinar information. This program is being recorded, but since you're an attendee and your video and audio are muted, you will not be part of the recording and are not visible directly to panelists. In preparing this webinar, we reviewed more than 1,000 RSVPs with your suggestions and comments. So we really tried to build a presentation around that, and Dr. Klawoon will share more about our program. We will continue to address your questions to the best of our ability in future written communications and webinars. Apologies. You can submit questions using the Q&A tool throughout the program. And again, you can find information on our homepage at sa.ucsb.edu Friday afternoon. With that, I'll just briefly share the agenda and we'll do our panelist introductions. And then I'll turn it over to our host, Dr. Margaret Klawoon, our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. I'm Miles Ashlock, he, him, his, Chief of Staff in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. So pleased again to welcome parents and loved ones this evening. And Dante, would you mind just introducing yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Dante. I'm a third-year statistics and data science major and former orientation staff member.
Fantastic. We're so glad to have you here. And Helen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Helen. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a third-year history major and LGBTQ studies minor. And I was also an O staffer last summer with Dante.
Fantastic. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Dante. We're really glad to have your perspective to enrich our board and help answer questions this evening. On the agenda are, of course, our opening remarks and then a preview of our academic and campus operations in fall 2021, local COVID-19 updates, campus and community housing updates, some notes about student mental health and career services. And then as time permits, we'll continue with open Q&A to answer any additional questions that arise and our closing remarks. We plan to close the program at 5:30 this evening. And next, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves in the order on the screen, beginning with Dr. Jeffrey Stoppel, Professor and Associate Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Education.
And that about says it, Miles.
I guess it does. Sorry, Jeff.
I'm also Dean of Undergraduate Education in the College of Letters and Science. I've been at UCSB since 1987. My professor position is in the mathematics department.
Thanks much.
And hi, I'm Dr. Vea Skripkis. I am the Executive Director of Student Health Services at UCSB. I am a family physician by training, and I have been at UCSB since July of 2020.
Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Polito. I am the medical director of the UCSB COVID-19 response team. I'm also a family medicine trained physician, and I've been at UCSB since July of 2019.
Hi, everyone. I'm Willie Brown. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor for Housing, Dining, and Auxiliary Enterprises. I've been at UCSB since 1988, but I've also been at the UC system since the early 70s. I won't say what date, but I'm approaching 50 years in the UC system.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Jaw Burcham. I've probably emailed, talked, or texted with some of you all. It's great to be here. I've been here since 1996 as a student and a staff member here for the past 10 years. And I'm the manager, one of the managers at University and Community Housing Services.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Brian Aloude. I'm a psychologist in training, and I am the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services. I've been on campus for 6 years, and I've been the Director of CAPS for 3.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diana Cedar. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Interim Associate Director for Employer Services of the Career Services Center. I've been with UCSB for almost 5 years now, and I have been in this role for 4 months.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Susanna Scott is a professor and chair of the Academic Senate, and she's actually been in a meeting with the Senate all day long, planning for fall 2021 and beyond, but she will be joining us later in the program, and we wanted to be sure to introduce her. With that, I'll turn it over to our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Margaret Clowoon, for opening remarks.
Thank you, Miles. Welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Division of Student Affairs for you as UCSB students. I am Margaret Clowoon, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and I am so pleased to be here today with my colleagues to bring this program to you. You, as parents and loved ones and family members, are a very important part of our university community, and we know how important you are in the journey of your student. We consider you our partners and want to provide information that can be useful and that strengthens your knowledge base about UCSB. Today's program, from beginning to end, has been shaped around the questions and topics that you provided to us in advance. There will be time for your live questions in today's webinar, but I can assure you that each presenter here was invited because of questions and topics that you sent in advance. Our aim tonight is to cover a range of issues that you identified as important. If we have learned one thing from this past year, and I think actually we've learned a lot, it's about the value of regular communication, including with parents and families and loved ones. Tonight's webinar is part of a series that we will be bringing to you, including upcoming programs in September, November, February, and May. Today's event has so many participants that we're not able to give you the opportunity to meet each other, but we expect in future programs as we go forward that we can change the format and try some different modes of interacting. I hope that most of you are already signed up for our UCSB parent newsletter that comes out monthly. If you are not, we will be providing information as we did in the introductory slide so that you can get signed up and receive the newsletter regularly. At the top of tonight's program, I want to offer one assurance. We have heard you and understand that this year has disrupted the educational expectations of students. We realize that we will be welcoming to campus in the fall new first-year students, some second-year students who are new to campus, and new and continuing transfer students who have not been on campus. We understand that campus experience is different from the remote learning experience, especially for students who have been at home this year, and we're preparing to support the learning of students who are new to campus who are not first-year students. In fact, we are planning special events and opportunities to make sure that our second-year students have the support they need to transition to campus activities and in-person learning. We expect to have welcome events and activities for all of our new students and some class bonding activities that will assist second-year students in particular in connecting to their peers and to the campus. We plan to expand our traditional kickoff to the academic year, Convocation, to be a welcome for all students. And around that event, we will have some special opportunities to introduce students to all that is offered in person. We are planning activities for second-year students that will introduce them to campus resources, including academic services and student organizations. We are also designing some ongoing programs for second-year students arriving on campus, including peer mentoring. We invited some of our current students, Helen and Dante, who you just met, to join us tonight so that you can hear more about the student experience. And we will also cover some of the resources that you expressed wanting to know more about given the impacts of COVID, including mental health resources and career services. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're so happy to have this time with you, and we'll get started with our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. And now to Dr. Stoppel for our fall 2021 academic preview.
Right, and it has been long awaited, certainly. We hoped a year ago to have some in-person classes in fall 2020. That couldn't come to pass, unfortunately, and we hope the same for winter 2021. We couldn't do that either, really. Only a very small number of classes being offered. We kind of shot over spring, but we were hoping that summer would have, again, quite a few in-person classes, and that wasn't possible either. But we're pretty sure now for fall, and we've gone ahead and scheduled virtually all classes in person for fall. Backing up to summer a little bit, we do have some in-person residential programs. We're running, as we have traditionally done, the freshman summer start program, which will be, classes will be remote, but it's a residential program in the dormitories. We have an analog of that newly created for the second year class, second year summer. It's called for students who will be rising sophomores, but again, have never had the opportunity to be on campus. We also have a transfer edge program for the incoming transfer students. So all three of these are residential programs. They look to be really valuable, and there's a lot of student interest already. For fall, we are anticipating, the UC Office of the President has spread around already for consultation what they will be implementing in terms of a vaccine mandate for students. So we expect students will be vaccinated. Classrooms will be at 100% capacity and in person. And we're both excited and a little nervous about that. From the kind of questions in the chat already, I can see some parents and students also a little bit nervous about it. And I think everybody recognizes it's going to be a little bit scary at first, but we will all get through it together. We are implementing, as Margaret said, on the student affairs side, mentors, and we're going to do the same on the academic side as well. We've got a number of different mentoring programs for a number of different majors so that undergrad students can get connected up with somebody who's more senior that knows the ropes and knows what the major is like. I think that was the extent. Yeah. I'll stop there because I know there's a lot of questions to answer.
Miles, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And I'd like to offer a question actually to Dante and Helen, which is just thinking about this fall. Once our students are on campus, what is the best way for students to meet other students and get acclimated to the campus? Particularly, what's your advice for our second year students who will be new to the campus in Isla Vista?
Well, this is such a good question and definitely something, I mean, I was worried about this coming onto campus as a first year and we hadn't even had a global pandemic yet then. So I definitely get this concern. I think going to clubs is definitely my #1 way to get to know people at the beginning of the school year. There's usually a club fair during the week of welcome, which I won't speak to how in-person week of welcome is going to be. I'll leave that to the more experts here, but definitely getting involved with clubs. And I know that there's a lot of anxiety for second year students about meeting people because you haven't gotten to go on campus yet, but you really need to think about the fact that 2 entire classes have never met anybody at UCSB before. And everybody's going to be in the same scenario of, I don't know anybody, I need friends. So going to club meetings, talking to people on campus, talking to people in your classes, especially, everyone's going to be looking for friends. So I hope that some of the anxieties about that, because I know there is a lot of social anxiety going around, and I just want everyone to know that this is a wonderful, welcoming place, and everybody wants to make friends.
Yeah, just to add on to what Helen has said so far, I think another great way is kind of attending events in the residence halls that the resident assistants put on. That's something that I really enjoyed as a first year at UCSB when I was kind of trying to find a group and meet some people. Convenience is always easy, so that's another great way, I think, to kind of find a group of people or just a couple people that you can find similar interests with.
Great, thank you, Dante. And I know we're hearing some questions consistent with this about that week of welcome in person, and I just want to affirm what both Margaret and Jeff have shared in terms of our looking ahead and certainly planning both for our incoming freshmen as well as sophomore and second year students and beyond. All right, thank you so much. Next, we'll turn to Dr. Skripkus for COVID-19 vaccine updates.
Thank you, Miles. And thank you, Dr. Kluwen, for allowing me to present this afternoon and evening. Miles, if we could show the first slide that I have. Thank you. So I'd like to share with this group. So as of May 22nd, 72% of our active spring 2021 undergraduate and graduate students have either been fully or partially vaccinated. I wanted to share the statistics to share some good news with you that this is a really great percentage of our students. Our electronic health record allows us the ability to query the California Immunization Registry system in order to get this information. So this number is more than likely even higher than that because I cannot capture all the data of the international students and those students who are out of state who may have not uploaded all of their information into the CARE system. But this gives the parents and our faculty and staff and everyone the sort of larger picture of what our vaccination effort is so far. It is currently ongoing. So we were lucky that starting in January of this year, we were able to start administering vaccines to faculty, staff, and some students, depending on the tier system that was allocated to us by the California Department of Public Health, as well as the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department. Through those efforts, as well as many county efforts, we've gotten a lot of our students vaccinated. If you can move to the next slide, Miles, please. Thank you. And this is just a snapshot of the internally at Student Health, what we've done. We initially received about 3,210 total vaccines of the Moderna vaccine. And we have been able to vaccinate over about 900 of our staff members, about 450 of our faculty members, and 170 of our students. That was when we were still an open pod, and there's lots of details on that. I don't want to get too much into it, but as the My Turn system happened, we had to pivot a bit away from having an open pod. And now we're back partnering with the county. We started another vaccination clinic with the county May 3rd, and another one coming up next week on June 3rd for the Moderna vaccines. We're opening up, and we've been doing now every Thursday for the Johnson & Johnson vaccines for our students, as well as our faculty and staff members. All of the vaccinations are at no cost to any of the students and our faculty members. And we've been getting a really good response. All this to say, our hope is that we'll be up into the 80s, 90s, even close to the 95% vaccination mark would be really rewarding and really amazing for our student body population to get us back to opening up, to get us to feel safe, to bring people back to campus. And so it's a positive news that I'd like to bring to you is that a lot of our students have been vaccinated and a lot more are still getting vaccinated, and we're going to be here to offer that vaccine for them. Thanks, Miles.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Skripkis. And now we're going to turn to Dr. Polito for some COVID-19 mitigation information.
All right, thanks, Miles. So I am going to run through a bunch of information here that focuses really on where we've been this year and where we hope to be going. I just want to throw in the caveat there that everything changes really quickly in COVID public health world, and it is evolving more rapidly now than it has in several months. However, I'll just run through what we have here. So this is what my team does. We do COVID-19 mitigation. And up until the point where we started to be able to give vaccinations, this was really all we had to control COVID-19 on the campus. So my team has been doing a lot of testing, case investigation of positive cases, contacting everybody who was in contact with the cases, and then in conjunction with Willie's team over at Housing have been supporting isolation and quarantine for people who have cases and are exposed. Next slide. So here's where we stand right now, and we've been here for quite a while, but this is going to be changing in the very near future. Right now, the campus offers once-a-week testing for really all staff, faculty, and students. Testing is mandatory once a week for any undergraduate who's living in campus housing, attending one of very few in-person classes, working on campus, or really accessing any campus facility. Pretty much everybody else, testing is strongly recommended. Next slide, please. And then we have on campus a badging system that we're using, and that's to access campus in really any capacity. So each day, anybody who's coming on campus, staff, faculty, or students have to complete a symptom survey that says that they don't have any COVID-19 symptoms, that they haven't tested positive, that they have not been exposed to COVID. Once the survey is done and the undergraduates have tested, they get one of these badges that they can display on their phone. And you can see that there's various different badges that they can get. They're all aiming for this cleared badge. Overdue means that they either haven't tested or haven't filled out their survey. In isolation means that they either have COVID or they have symptoms. Quarantine means that they've been exposed to somebody with COVID. Just to put in a little plug for vaccines, anybody who has been vaccinated, whether or not they're exposed to COVID, it doesn't matter. They will not be put in quarantine. And then if they get this blue NA badge, that means they're not registered correctly in the system and they need to contact me. So here's the best way to get in touch with us via email. And then this link up here is for the student health website where that has a lot of information. Next slide, please. These are our testing centers. We do have 2 testing centers on campus. It is offered free of charge once a week to all students, staff, and faculty. They're nucleic acid amplification tests, and that encompasses a large group of tests, including PCR tests. The sites can really crank through up to 1,000 people a day per site. Oh my goodness, there we go, thank you. We do have multiple labs processing the test, including one on campus. The testing centers are very safe. The testing is done outside. The staff is fully trained and is in full PPE all the time. You can see that there is good social distancing, and they're really rapid throughput. So the average time that people are there is really less than 3 minutes. Next slide, please. Here is actually our data from the entire year. We have done 112,000 tests, tested 14,000 unique people with a positive case of 1,345. Each case receives a phone call and support while they're in isolation. There is an average of 3 contacts per case, and that the range there was from 0 to 27. There really was somebody with 27 people they exposed. And all UCSB affiliated contacts are supported through quarantine. All right, next slide. And I just wanted to show you the results in terms of like what the curve has been all year. You'll see this the part right above January to March. That was when we really hit our peak. That really is reflective of what happened in Santa Barbara County and in the state of California as a whole. So that was very consistent. Next slide, please. And then going forward, like I said, we're really at a lot of decision points here. And so things that we've been discussing the past couple of weeks is what our vaccination rates are. And we're using that to judge what kind of targeted testing are we going to do. Most likely we'll only be testing people that are unvaccinated. We're still discussing what sort of non-pharmacologic interventions we're going to be having, and mostly that's going around masking, like how much masking are we going to require indoors, particularly in classes. And we're doing all of this in cooperation with local and state health departments, with the University of California, and that's where we stand right now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Polito.
Thanks, Miles.
All right, now we're going to turn over to Dr. Brian Olawude, who is our Director for Counseling and Psychological Services, for some information about student mental health.
Hello, everyone. Hello again. I apologize. I do not have slides to share. My QI person has just returned from a family leave, so we are operating a little bit behind. But what I can say, in the last year, beginning in 2020, our counselors, our faculty, our staffs, and our families have helped our students through a global pandemic, an economic crisis, a polarized election, a continuing racial justice movement, all with chronic uncertainty, anxiety, and depression, with no preparation or warning, or even really any special training. all while going through this simultaneously. All that is to say, there's been a lot on our students' plate, and that is reflected in our numbers of students we have seen. For this quarter, this spring quarter alone, we've conducted 2,873 telemental health sessions. We are busier than we were last spring quarter. Our students have adjusted to the mode of receiving therapy through Zoom or phone calls. We offer both. We have struggled, as we have always struggled, with hiring and retaining qualified clinicians. We are looking to increase our staff. Right now, we have about 27 mental health clinicians. And with that 27 mental health clinicians, we've accomplished those 2,800 plus sessions. We've also looked at our wait time, and our wait times right now for an average wait time for our intake is about 2 weeks for about 46% of our students. That stretched out to 3 weeks for the remainder of our students. So close to what most of our students can get in to see us in 3 weeks. If you look at the community, and if you look at Kaiser Permanente and the VA, which are two large systems, which have much larger budgets and much larger staffs than ours, the average wait time for Kaiser is 10 business days, and the average wait time for the VA is 15. So we're right in the area with much less resources. We have made some changes this year. We've added an online request form. Students can request to see us by just going to our website and filling out a form. I'll put that in the chat, Miles, and you can share that out with everyone. That's the first contact. The first contact at our office is with a clinician for a brief assessment. And please don't get the idea of brief confused with not quality. A brief assessment could be as short as 15 minutes, but it could be as long as 2 hours, depending on what the student is presenting. The average wait time is about 2 days for a brief assessment. That is somewhat of a misnomer because wait times are also calculated based on student preference. Some students don't want to be seen right away because they have a class, they may be traveling. With the brief assessment, quite often, probably close to 75%, we're able to accommodate the same day. Student schedules can be challenging. With the asynchronous learning, that doesn't mean students are always immediately available. Many of them are working, many of them have increased family obligations in this pandemic and remote learning. I want to also briefly talk about something that in the literature is being referred to as an echo pandemic, and that is the anticipated mental health crises, depression, anxiety symptoms that we can anticipate following the move out of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are we doing to prepare for that? We have introduced different services. We've introduced single session, which allows students to be seen for a very focused session. We looked at the data and realized that nationally, the #1 number of sessions someone attends therapy is 1. So we want to make the most of that 1 session by being very focused. We've continued our group programming. Our group programming did transfer to online, and it's been very well received by our students. We are looking to increase the number of our staff. We recognize that any wait in a crisis feels difficult, and we don't want students to feel like they're not being listened to when we're looking at how fast we can get students in to be seen. We want to make sure that students know all their options. We have been working with our community partners about referring into communities, but one thing we've noticed is also the community partners are impacted by the increase in the need for mental health services. We are also looking at ways to increase our visibility. We have increased our social media presence. One of the things that we depended on or benefited from when we were in person was students would just walk past our building. We have a relatively visible building on campus. It's known as the Pink Building across from Stroke Tower. We don't have that casual, oh, I can stop in for a session. Oh, I can stop in our mental health peers massage chairs. So we're looking at ways to make sure students know about our services and know how to access our services. We continue to have after-hour services. Our building typically closes at 5, but however, students can contact our number and be connected with a 24/7 on-call clinician, and many students do. We have seen an increase in the utilization of that particular service. I am able to say that without a doubt, we have a very dedicated staff and a very dedicated and supportive administration, and our students are very, very supportive of our services. And we're hoping that as the state budget starts to move in different directions, that more money will be placed in mental health, and we'll be able to expand not only our actual treatment, but also our prevention efforts. I can make those numbers available. If people want those numbers in particular, I can send those to you, Miles, and you can send them out.
Thank you, Dr. Olawude. And there are 2 URLs on the screen right now, both for CAPS and for our well-being services, which include CAPS. And we all just really want parents to know about that full spectrum of services.
One more thing. Can I say one more thing?
Please.
I also want to make sure that people know that CAPS isn't the only department that provides mental health services.
Exactly.
We have wonderful psychiatrists in student health. I will say probably the best psychiatrist I've ever worked with is employed with student health. And I don't say that just because I like him. He is probably one of the most talented psychiatrists I've had the pleasure of working with. We also have a wonderfully dedicated social work team that works with our students. We have an incredible alcohol and drug program that also works with our students. So we have a very collaborative team, and it's not just CAPS that's working with our students. We have students who reach out. We have staff that will reach out to students who may not have been connected with us yet with Student Mental Health Coordinator's Office. So we really look at this as a team approach on our campus, and the wellbeing.ucsb.edu website will link all those different services to your students.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Dr. Olawude. And there are some questions in the chat about transfer students who next year will be second-year transfer students as well. And I want to reassure folks that absolutely, when we're talking about our new students from this year coming to campus for the first time and how can we support them and reach out to them, we are absolutely thinking about those students as well. Margaret, did you want to say more about the week of welcome that we're planning for fall 2021?
Yes, I saw some questions in the Q&A, and also Helen mentioned week of welcome, so I thought I would follow up. The week of welcome will be in person, and second-year students will be absolutely invited and encouraged to join the week of welcome events. And if you want to start to look at events that are offered on campus, I encourage you to go to Shoreline, and Miles, that's another link Miles can put in the app. And Shoreline is going to have class pages that will start to build online community and will give you a sense of events and what's going on campus. And if you have any questions specifically about campus orgs or week of welcome, you can email campusorgs@sa.ucsb.edu. But I encourage you to go to Shoreline and take a look at what's up there. So we will have an exciting and very full week of welcome that we encourage our second-year students to join as well, and any new students, as Miles said.
Thank you so much. And without further ado, we'll turn to Associate Vice Chancellor Willie Brown for an update on housing and dining for fall 2021.
Thanks, Miles. And first of all, I just want to say thanks to all of our students and parents, families, those folks who support the students for being so patient with us through this pandemic. We've had to reinvent a lot of our work, and we are still reinventing our work. But we're trying to do our best to provide the best quality service to any student who attends UCSB. So with that in mind, I've been trying to keep up in the chat. Hopefully I've been giving answers that people appreciate to do that. We're very much a wait and see mode, and things look very good for us right now. We think things are improving, and we're doing everything on the campus to get us back as fully as possible to whatever our new normal is going to be. With that in mind, Miles, can you do the next slide? So I want to give a little bit of a sense of kind of what we're doing and why it's taking so long for us to get information to people. we're very much in a wait and see game. Last year, as the pandemic hit us so very hard, we were limited in the number of students we could have living on campus, essentially graduate students and students with families. And then for the winter quarter, we opened up to a very limited number of undergraduates, slightly less than 1,000. So we normally have over 10,000 students living on campus. So you understand that was a very big hit and a very big impact on our student community. So we're trying to wait and get information from our public health agencies that help us maximize the number of spaces we have available. And so we have really looked at establishing 3 priority groups, and we hope to actually get all 3 of those priority groups in, but we have to establish some level of hierarchy to make that happen. So the first group, and this is a group we've always dealt with first, is our freshmen and transfers that will enter in officially in fall of 2021. Our next group is freshmen and transfers, whether they lived on campus or not with us this year, offering them housing too for the next group. And then our final group of priorities will be students who haven't lived in housing, maybe in their junior or senior year, and have applied for housing, but we're still waiting to see exactly how many spaces we're going to have available to do that. So we hope we can go back somewhere close to where we were in fall of 2019, our last normal year, and that is a little over 10,000 students. At the bare minimum, we hope to get to our built-to capacity, which is a little over 8,800 students. So those are numbers we are considering right now, and that's really important for us to do that. So I saw in the chat, some people were querying about how they get access to housing. So everybody needs to apply for housing. So I put in the first slide here, you can contact us, housing information at housing.ucsb.edu for any additional information, or if you need to apply for housing. We do have a number of students. We've had over 8,700 students apply for housing for next year. So we would encourage people to make sure you apply. That's how you get in the system. Miles, next slide. Schedule and timing, a lot of questions about schedule and timing. Again, we're making some educated guesses right now as to where that's going to be. We're kind of really, in California, we're focused on the governor's June 15th date. And so we're hoping that as a campus, we can have conversations with our local public health agencies that really provide some overlay and some recommendations about how we move forward in kind of managing this pandemic. And so we're really using that date to hopefully have enough information which will allow our campuses to make the right kind of decisions to move forward in the correct way. So we assume that sometime after that June 15th date, we'll have as much information as we're likely to have, and we'll be able to really kind of proceed on moving forward with allocating our housing for next fall. And so that means, given that the June 15th date, we're likely to start notifying people sometime early in July. Can't give you a specific date because that's a lot of work. And I think Jen follows me, so she'll probably have a little bit more information about that, but it takes us a couple of weeks to get it together once we determine what the numbers are. And again, the main thing is that people do need to apply. I saw earlier, not in the chat today, but people ask about roommate requests, and we always honor roommate requests. And if people are preferring, we're not quite sure how the mandate with vaccinations is going to fall out. But we do, I think the question that was asked was, can someone request someone who's been vaccinated as a roommate? The answer to that question is yes. We always accept any requests that people have and do our best to honor them to the best of our ability. Next slide, Miles. I did put in the chat, we now have a more elongated move-in process. Some of that really relates to some of the old criteria of maintaining social distancing. We're doing as much as we can to keep the quantity of people that come to the campus at one time to the bare minimum needs to be. So we actually have 2 move-in processes. We have one move-in process for students living in the residence halls, our dormitories, and we have a separate move-in process for students who are moving into our student apartments. So the apartment process will begin on Wednesday, September 15th, and end on Sunday, September 19th. And the residence halls are a slightly shorter period that will begin on Thursday, September 16th, and end on Sunday, September 19th. Now, some of that is subject to change. We don't know right now if we need to add a quarantine isolation period to that. So we're making some assumptions there. If we need to have a more extended quarantine isolation period, where that period may be extended. and every student who is assigned housing will be given a specific move-in date. And I did see a question, not in the chat, but earlier, about family support. We always invite families to come and help their sons and daughters move in. And so parents are welcome. We ask people to be cognizant that we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and we are trying to minimize the number of people who do come to campus, but we welcome all visitors and support people to help students move in. And we have a pretty organized and delineated process that allows the students to move in, families to separate and go about their way, and still have the students begin their careers here at UCSB as a student. Next slide, Miles. Dining, there were several questions about dining. We offer dining. We start at 7 in the morning and we're open till, I think this year our open hours will be till 10. They're all you can eat settings. And so we have 4 dining facilities. And I think our plans are this year, we're actually going to convert one of our in-person dining facilities to a fully takeout facility. We've had a lot of requests over the last year, partially because we've been serving meals on a takeout basis until I think recently, where we did open up again. But a lot of students like the idea of doing takeout meals. So we're going to give that a try. So we'll have 3 facilities that will be available for in-person dining, and we'll have 1 facility that will be for takeout. Any student who's not living in university-owned housing or living in the residence halls really can purchase what we call an off-campus meal plan. That just means that they're not living in the residence halls, and they can purchase either a 5, a 10, or 14 meal plan. And those are individual meals for a week to do with that. Okay, that was my last slide. And of course, I'll continue to answer questions in the chat. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Willie. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over for some community housing information to the Jen Jaw-Burcham. She mentioned earlier that she's the manager of University and Community Housing Services, and she has already been widely celebrated in our Q&A. And I'm proud to share that it was also announced today on campus that she is a recipient of the 2021 Getman Service to Students Award. So we are so pleased and proud to have Jen on the call today and thank her for her service, not only to our students, but to our parent community. Thanks, Jen. And I hope now that I've embarrassed you, you can carry on with your presentation.
Wow, Miles, you can introduce me anytime. It's good to be here. I hope you can hear me all right. And Willie, I'm going to follow you, and I can answer some questions in the chat as well for folks who may have missed things. I am one of the managers in University and Community Housing Services. My primary job was overseeing the community housing in Isla Vista, Goleta, Santa Barbara, and throughout the pandemic, I have also been helping with the university side of things with contracts and assignments. Next slide, Miles. One of the questions that we received from parents are off-campus resources, not just for our office, but also just other resources that parents and students can reach out to. One of them being the AS Legal Resource Center. I work really closely with the 2 lawyers there. It's a free service available to any registered UCSB student. And Robin and Ron and I work really closely with any student and any property provider who may have a maintenance issue, roommate conflicts. The Isla Vista Tenants Union is another amazing resource for students in Isla Vista. I work again really closely with their student board. I sit on their student board as well. The Isla Vista Community Service District is really dedicated to safety and security out in IV. And then the UCSB Basic Needs Resources for food and housing insecurity, another amazing resource on campus. Next slide. I thought I would just talk a little bit about what our office does. We combined offices about 3 years ago, the residence hall side, the university side, and then the community side, and it's been great. So we see ourselves as a one-stop shop for everything housing. So the UCSB Housing Contract and Assignment Services, that component oversees the residence halls, university apartments, graduate housing, and family student housing. And then we usually house over 10,000 students in our university-owned housing. And then about over 10,000 students live in the community. So I saw a lot of questions about parents being concerned if their student doesn't get university housing. That is my job. So my job is to maintain relationships with property providers out in Isla Vista. And we have a rental listing website that I'll talk more about. I oversee and do advisings for roommate conflicts, landlord-tenant disputes, educational programs. We have forms and brochures. And my job, I tell students, is to give them their education on top of their education. So they'll graduate with this amazing degree, but I want to make sure that they can leave UCSB and rent successfully wherever they may land in New York or, you know, maybe here in Santa Barbara. So that's a little bit more about our office and what I do. Next slide, please. This is our rental listing website. I call it the glorified Craigslist. The only way students can log in is with their UCSB net ID and password. And we work directly with the landlords that post on this site. So you can go to rentallistings.housing.ucsb.edu, and there are a lot of other resources as well. So students can actually post that they're looking for a place, and students can also post that they're looking for a student to move into their household. So it's a great way for students to connect with each other. And then the landlords on this, that post on our rental listing site, update their vacancies. I work really directly with, I would say, about 90 to 95% of the landlords out in Isla Vista. There's a lot of turnover of buildings, but we try to keep things up to date. And so if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure you all know how to get in touch with me by now. Next slide. Facebook groups. So I actually am administrator and a moderator on the Isla Vista housing group and the UCSB housing group. So I troll those daily, all day long. And I try to answer questions and direct students to various listings. So those are two amazing resources. And I try to go on there daily and even on the weekends to just make sure that things are, that I'm deleting anything that may be suspicious or trolls. I would make sure to join the UCSB UCHS group as well. We send updates. We have updates on there as well. And then the HDAA Facebook group. That's a great one to join as well. Next slide. There were a lot of questions about storage. Students that may be moving from one apartment to another and there's a 2-week turnover period, or they're moving out of UCSB housing and moving into Isla Vista. So Dormbox and Campus Storage are two moving companies that UCSB actually have just added to our vendor list. And they will actually come and pack up the student belongings, store them, and then deliver them to the new place. I just want to note that Dormbox, I'm not missing an M at the end. When you click on there, it's actually dormbox.co. So just make sure that if you're looking online that you make sure that you're on the right link. And then Campus Storage, you would actually reach out to them directly. And I think this is going to help a lot of our storage facilities in Goleta get full, or they have like a 3-month minimum. And most often students are just looking for a short-term option for a couple of weeks or a month. So we think this might be a great option for students. Next slide. Another question parents had was the community move-in timeline. So most often leases for IV are 12 months, running June to June, July to July, August to August, September to September. And the move-in dates are going to be listed on the lease. If your student's not here for summer, I do an amazing subleasing program and I have amazing subleasing resources. So feel free to reach out to me and I can send those along to you. And just make sure, I try to tell all students and even parents, when you're moving into a new apartment, to make sure to do a move-in, move-out video. I've attached a Prezi presentation. Our office actually used to do those for students. Due to COVID, we've had to suspend that. But I made a Prezi, a how-to video on how to do a move-in, move-out video successfully. And this is a great way to just document any pre-existing conditions and to secure your security deposit. Next slide. Parents were asking about hotel resources. These are ones that I just found online that are great. They're great resources for you to just look at local motels and hotels in our area. And this is our information. So our office is located on the 3rd floor of the University Center. We're currently closed through summer. We're doing some renovations in our offices, hopefully to return in person in fall. For now, we're all working remotely. I have an amazing staff that answer emails and phone calls Monday through Friday. Our staff hours are 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Our phone numbers listed there. And as you all know, I'm on Facebook parent forum all day, every day, evenings, weekends. And so hopefully you know how to get in touch with me. And yeah, so that is my presentation. I was gonna talk, there were some other questions that were in the chat. So I'll get on the chat and make sure to try to answer those as well. Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jen. I hope you all enjoyed meeting the face behind the name there. And I want to put another question to our student panelists. So Helen and Dante, what are some resources that have been available to students and are still throughout the pandemic? And what services in particular have you found particularly valuable throughout your experience in remote instruction?
One specific resource I can think of that has still been available before the pandemic and during is CLAS, which is a great tutoring service for courses. That's something I found out about when I was a freshman and was struggling with some of my courses at UCSB, and it was luckily still available over the remote platform that I was able to use still to use my classes in 2020.
For me, I would say my biggest one that I've kind of implemented for myself, which isn't so much of a resource as it is just something you should do anyway, is going to office hours. Because getting close to graduation, I really feel like I need to be making these connections with professors, but now we've had a year and a quarter of online learning. And so going to Zoom office hours is even more important to me than going to in-person office hours was, because I really don't get the chance to talk to professors other than that. So that's definitely one. And then I have recently been in the housing search for next year. So what Jen was talking about with the Facebook groups, that has been a lifesaver for me because I haven't had the ability to be on campus, talking to new people, trying to meet people to be housed with. And so just scrolling through those Facebook groups and looking for people I might be a good potential roommate match with has been super helpful and really eased the stress of the housing search for me.
Great. Thank you both so much. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Diana Cedar, in the Career Services Department. Diana.
Well, thank you very much, Miles. Gosh, there's been so much information shared during this presentation. It's very impressive, and it brings me back to when my children were going to school, and wow, housing, you're doing an amazing job, I gotta tell you. Anyway, I'm here to talk about career services and internships. So I have our career center. Can we go to the first slide there, Miles? I want to share with you a little bit about the services that our career center offers. This is just a snapshot of what it is that we do. We have a very robust series of programs for your students, and I'm excited to share them with you, but this is just I'm just touching on a few things here. So one of the things that we offer to students, and something I hope you encourage your students to participate in, are our one-on-one career counseling sessions and our drop-in advising opportunities. So to get your students started, sometimes they just need to talk to somebody about how their major relates to a job, what their skills and interests are. And it's really nice to be able to sit down with someone and sort of talk through those questions. Our counselors, we have 7 of them. They each have an industry focus. So a student, for example, interested in engineering and technology can sit down with our counselor who has a depth of information there, a depth of knowledge there, and is connected to that particular industry. So that's really helpful. Same thing with communication and arts. Same thing with education and human services. So your student, based on their interests, can reach out to the counselor that sort of facilitates that interest and make an appointment. They also can participate in our day of drop-in advising. These are, it used to be our career resource room where students could come in and just ask one of our career peers about, a certain issue relating to the career search. Now it's a Zoom room, but students can pop in and ask a career peer that question. It's just electronic. And I should backtrack and say that all of our services are offered electronically now. We did that pivot reasonably smoothly back in March. I mean, it was chaotic for sure, but we were able to achieve those virtual objectives, and we were back, with students right away. So my side of the office, I manage the employer services team. I work directly with employers, and we put on lots and lots of large and small events, bringing employers together with students to create these wonderful connections and they result in great opportunities, right? So we're putting on career fairs. We do multiple career fairs each year. Each quarter, we do at least one, sometimes 4. That's fall quarter. And we also do regular information sessions, or we host regular information sessions with employers. Once upon a time, those were all in person. Now they are virtual. But that's actually just extended the reach of career services across the country and even internationally. So that's kind of a positive result of our COVID experience. We also have an extensive digital resources toolkit. And prior to COVID, but certainly since COVID, we've been very focused on trying to make our resources accessible to students 24/7. So we were very strategic in making some choices about these subscriptions platforms that we have that will help students at every phase of the job search process. So if they're just trying to figure out where their major takes them or where their interests, what their interest relates to in terms of a major, we have a resource for that. We have resources to do research on employers, on employers and industries and different kinds of careers, which is super important. So we've got research platforms for students. We've got a platform that helps them with their resume and critiques their resume and gives them feedback on how best to massage it so that the applicant tracking systems actually accept them. We have an international database. We have so many different databases that, I want everybody to know about them and your students to take advantage of them. If you want to check them out, go to our website and look under Toolkit, but they're there. And Handshake, I think I've mentioned it, maybe I've mentioned it once or twice. That is our jobs platform, and it's kind of the gold standard across the country and even internationally where university recruiting is concerned. So all of your students have access to Handshake, and they need to use Handshake if they're interested in finding a job or an internship. It's really a very robust program. It's not perfect, no program is, but your student has an account and everybody does, they should be up and using it. And I'll be referring back to it in the future because we do a lot of our communications through Handshake. So we also have the Online Career Center, which is our website, and it's actually an award-winning website, came online last October, and it is a very, very deep website. So if your student has questions, they can go on there, and in all transparency, I actually have to search for things on our website because it's just that big. I use the search bar to type in a search. But anyway, there's our website right there. If you want to go check it out, I encourage you to do that. And if we can go to the next slide, I can talk to you a little bit about some national trends that we're seeing. Okay, so last year was tough, no doubt about it. This year, things are looking a little bit better. So I hope that brings us a sense of optimism that you can share with your student, because it's not dismal. We have to work hard to get jobs, but employers are hiring. So this information I'm sharing here is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Their survey indicates that college hiring is going to be up about 7.2% nationally for the class of 2021, which is exciting. They're also saying that there's a difference from fall to spring. This spring, 30% of the employers reported plan to increase their hiring, which is up from 16.5% in the fall. We like that trajectory. And it says that only 8% of employers anticipate decreasing hiring, which is down from 31% in the fall. Also a trend that we are appreciating. And I just sent out my survey to our employers, the employers that are closest to us here at UCSB. I sent it to about 400 employers to find out what their thoughts are on next year and how things are looking for them. And 56% of them plan to increase hiring, which is super. And 63% think the roles will be in person, which is also very exciting. So these are some of the trends that we're seeing. And if we move to the next slide, I can answer a couple of questions that people have given to us. Unless you want the time back, Miles, you want me to keep going?
Please do. Continue.
Okay. So one of the questions that was submitted to us was, how do students know what companies recruit at UCSB? That's a great question. And the answer is they should be able to see this information from a variety of sources. So Handshake is the first one. We send out This Week at Career, that's the name of our newsletter, each week to all students at UCSB. I know that's a lot of people, but we want to get the word out, right? We want to get the information out. And it has events, all of the events that are taking place, the employer events that are occurring at UCSB with links in them. So it's really easy to RSVP, get the link, and be able to participate. We also provide, professional development tips and information. We promote all of our big career events and that type of thing. So This Week at Career, everybody gets it weekly. So the students can't tell you they don't get the information. We also post all of our information on social media. So our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and we use Shoreline. I actually distribute it to advisors. So we really work hard to make sure that students are aware of what's going on for career services. Also, getting on Handshake. It's really, really easy to look for the events. So yeah, that's the way students should look and see who's coming to campus. How do we help your student find internships? Well, we do a lot of things for students. I don't want to be redundant, but participating in a one-on-one counseling session, going to workshops, becoming familiar with Handshake. Those are all important steps that students take to facilitate their finding an internship. We are going to work hand in glove with the students, but the actual reality is that it's the students' responsibility to take this initiative and learn the systems and reach out to us, because and find out who's coming to campus. The resources are there for them. They just have to really take the initiative and get connected with one of us and get started. We do have a lot of peer support, so these they don't have to talk to a grown-up if they don't want to. They can certainly go and ask one of our peers if they want to access information that way. So there's a lot of things that we can do to support students getting internships. It's a lot like getting a full-time job. It's the same answer, really. Get out there, talk to people, use LinkedIn, network. Yeah, and if you're a first or second year student, it may be a little bit harder to find an opportunity in those early summers. Try and find some gig work because there's lots of resources out there to find employers that have short-term projects that they want to do. Talk to a faculty member about doing research. If you haven't got a lot of work experience, but they know your work ethic, they know your work, faculty members might be able to help you with that. So I hope that answers the question about internships. And again, there's a lot of overlap with the next two questions, actually. What do you offer? What support do you offer for graduating seniors? And what support do you offer for students post-graduation? So for graduating seniors, again, the same things hold. Get active, get involved, start talking to people, use your resources. They are there. Get on LinkedIn. We have over, I think, 200,000 alums on LinkedIn. So the alumni feature is critical. Find out who's working at a company that you're really interested in and have a coffee chat with them. So there's lots of things that students can do to be successful in finding work. And for students who are graduated, we offer students a 12-month grace period to use all of our resources after they graduate. And beyond that, they have access to all of our electronic resources and Handshake. All they need to do to have access to Handshake is make sure the system has a current email address. You don't have to keep your UCSB email address, but there has to be a shift over, and then they have those resources for them. I would also add that the alumni office has a system called Gaucho Network, and everybody, students and alumni, should join Gaucho Network. It's a great resource. It's a place where students can network and find mentors, and jobs are posted, and it's for our alumni. And in each of the cities, at least the big cities in California, students and alums should affiliate with their local alumni, their local Gaucho network, because there are those in San Francisco and in San Diego and in Los Angeles. So those are the things I would tell people looking for internships, people just graduating, and people who have graduated and are wonderful alumni, and come back and recruit at UCSB. So I talked a lot.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diana. Appreciate all of that information. And now I want to turn it over to Dr. Susanna Scott, Professor and Chair of the Academic Senate, for a few words. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Miles. It's wonderful to have an opportunity to address the parents, and I want to convey on behalf of the faculty how excited we are that we are going to be back in person in the fall. The pandemic projections that everybody is making make that sound really very viable. We know how much our students value their in-person interactions with the faculty and with each other. And the fact that we'll have students back on campus in the fall means that not just the students in the classrooms, but the visits to office hours, the professional career advice, the discussions about letters of recommendation, the research opportunities, all of these are an integral part of the academic experience of being at UC Santa Barbara. And we've really, really missed that in the past year. Looking very much forward to having our students back and being able to interact with them in these ways going forward. Many of the faculty have this very similar questions to the questions that students and parents have about what exactly fall is going to look like. We're making our best projections at the moment, and of course, they're just projections. We're going to have to be flexible and patient and adapt. But the faculty really believe, based on long experience, that teaching students in person is the best way to learn and to convey the professional experience that we have. We have the opportunity now to do some technology enhancements to our teaching, and we've learned a lot in the past year about how to do that. And so that combination of in-person teaching and technology enhancements is going to make next year really special. At the same time, we recognize that there's a lot of anxiety about exactly how things are going to look, and we're getting ready, starting already to think about exactly how we're going to deal with that in the fall. And really, really thank you for the privilege of being able to teach your students later this year. We're looking forward to that tremendously. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. And we do have a few minutes left in our program to address some questions. So I'll be taking some questions again that were submitted both live today, as well as ones that were submitted during the registration for our program. So thank you so much for attending this evening, and again, submitting your questions in the live chat. So I'm going to turn again to Helen and Dante and ask about how have you found research and employment opportunities while at UCSB?
That is a great question. And I'm so glad we got to hear about career services today, because they have been super helpful for me. I have found, I think, 2 of 3 of the jobs that I've had while at UCSB through Handshake, which was super helpful. Currently, I'm working for AmeriCorps, which was a job that I found on Handshake, and that's an amazing experience. And then what was the second part of the question? Career services and
getting involved in research. If you or your friends have been involved, how do they make that connection?
Also a great question. So I'm doing research for the first quarter ever this time, and I'm doing research for the history department. And I found this project through FRAP, which is, I believe it's Faculty Research Assistant Program. I think I got that acronym right. And that is where professors across all departments from the school will post their research projects when they're looking for student research assistants. And so I found the project that I'm working on through FRAP, and that's been a super great experience. So I don't know, Dante, if you have some comments on either of those things as well.
Yeah, I love Handshake too. I look on there all the time, just kind of for fun, just to see like, oh, what is UCSB offering students? Because like, there's always cool jobs on there. That's how I found the orientation job that Helen and I did this past summer, and that's where I also found my peer advisor job for the statistics department as well. In terms of research, I know another great way to kind of get connected with professors is just going to office hours and creating a relationship that way, and then just maybe asking, are you doing any research? Like, I really like your classes and I want to, apply what I've learned to the real world and make those great connections with professors.
And before I turn to some other panelists, again, for Dante and Helen, can you tell us what advice do you have personally for our continuing students as they, look ahead to the summer, to fall 2021, our return to campus? What's your personal Gaucho to Gaucho advice?
I think really just be ready for change. This year is definitely going to bring us some situations we haven't experienced before, especially if you haven't been on campus yet. I think just being ready for a whole new experience is going to really help you reset and be ready for the year. And then, like I mentioned before, putting yourself out there as much as possible. I know it's going to be hard coming in after being isolated in a pandemic for a year, but trying to put yourself out there as much as possible is really going to help you adjust to the new social scene, find friends, find activities that you're interested in, going to clubs, going to events in the residence halls like Dante mentioned. All of those things are really how you get connected and find your community and find your home here at UCSB.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I just like to always think of having a good balance is a great experience at UCSB. So, academic, social, mental, those are always things I like to keep in check from a day-to-day basis. So just keeping up with professors, keeping up with classes, but also making sure you're gaining what you want from the UCSB experience, connecting with other students, however that may be, through clubs, through classes. There's a million ways that can happen.
Fantastic, thank you. And to our medical professionals and other folks involved in COVID-19 planning, when it comes to the vaccination requirement, about when do we expect that we might hear more about that vaccination requirement and how people might need to opt out if they have religious or medical accommodations, for example?
Dr. Polito, do you want me to start with this one?
Yeah, that would be great.
Great. So I think there's a planning committee with the University Office of the President that's reconvening next week in June. I anticipate we'll have some guidelines, perhaps more mid-June to late June, that would be more solid on those recommendations. It's in process right now, so I wish I could say that we know exactly when that would be there, but I think we're waiting for a bit of guidelines from our working group.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And now I'd like to hear again from our student panelists. So Helen and Dante, what has been your experience finding housing in Isla Vista? And is there anything you would add just in terms of locating housing or finding roommates that you pair with well, in addition to what Willie and Jen shared this evening?
The only resource that I would add that I don't think we talked about is the student housing co-op. That is where I lived in Ivy the first year that I lived in Ivy. The student housing co-op is just an alternative system of housing where there's not a landlord, it's a co-op. So all the people who live in it are the people who own it. If that's something you are interested in, I definitely recommend going to their website and checking it out. And then my only other tip would be, if you can, before you sign a lease, to go and try to get a walkthrough of where you're going to live, just so you can make sure that everything in the house is up to par and up to what you want. But from my experience, finding roommates on Facebook has been really doable. And there's just so many people, especially right now, there's a lot of people posting looking for roommates. So using those Facebook groups is just a great resource that I really recommend everyone take advantage of.
One other thing I would advise students who are looking for housing, specifically in Isla Vista, is if you are using Facebook groups and things like that to try to get roommates or housemates, is to have some sort of genuine interaction with them before just saying, oh, we found this place, let's move in. Because I think that is important to kind of maybe set standards, see what their personality is like and things like that before committing to a 12-month lease on a place, because that is a big commitment and you do want to enjoy your time with who you're living with and where you're living.
You know what, you're so right about that, Dante, and that's something that I think I would want to add on is making sure you're compatible on more than just the social scale and the do you like to do similar activities scale. Things like how clean do you want your house? What time do you go to bed? What's your regular day routine day in the life? Is this another student who goes to UCSB or just someone living in the community? Really figuring out all the things that are going to happen in your daily life, and if you're compatible in those areas in addition to social areas, it's super important.
Great, thank you so much. And a question for Willie and Jen, if we can just return and repeat some of the information from earlier in the program, because I know there are a lot of questions about the priority groups for housing reservations on campus.
Sure, sure. It sounds a lot alike. So what we're trying to do is accommodate 2 classes of entering students. So we had the fall 2020 class who are not allowed to come to housing except in small numbers. And we've had a lot of correspondence from parents requesting not wanting their students to be penalized just simply because we couldn't do it. It was not publicly, it wasn't medically advisable to do it at the time. We're expecting, as Veas just talked about, to see some opening of that. So we're trying to manage bringing in, our first priority is obviously we're committed to the 2021 class, the entering class for 2021, that's freshmen and transfers. But we're also trying to marry that with maintain a commitment to the fall of 2020 class. So those are our first top 2 priorities. Then after that, our third priority is any other UCSB student who wants to access housing. And we do have housing. We have University of California, not UCSB, owns some additional housing in the Goleta, Isla Vista area. And we do assign students to that property. Jen would probably be a better expert on that, but we do provide housing there. So we have additional spaces that we sometimes ask students if they would prefer to be in an organized living group. That could be a really good choice for them. So we actually have more housing available than typically we talk about. So we're trying to manage all those groups, as well as accommodating those students who haven't lived in housing for a couple of years. We have a lot of people who might have lived with us in 2019-20 who chose to live off campus who are now looking to come back. And so we do think, depending on our numbers, we do think we can manage to handle most of the applications. I was looking at the list of students who have actually applied. These are current entering students for 2021, as well as the students who have applied that were from fall of 2020. And I think right now, the numbers seem to work out. We still are accepting applications through June 15th, so we could get more people. We could get a deluge of applications, which throws that out of whack. But we're hoping as much as we possibly can to accommodate as many students as possible. That really relies on our public health folks to do a good job of convincing our local public health agencies that we can do this and manage this well. It seems to be the conversations thus far seem to be going pretty well. So we do think we can manage to squeeze in as many people as we possibly can to make sure we meet everyone's needs.
Thank you very much.
And again, I'm sorry, Miles, I would also offer, I do appreciate people's patience. I think one of the things we're trying to avoid this year is we gave out many mixed and false signals. And throughout the summer, we were trying to be optimistic, but it turned out we weren't giving families and students the best information. So we're waiting to as late as we possibly can. I know that puts a lot of pressure on everyone to make sure when we tell you the story, it's the right story, it's the correct story, and you can, as the old saying goes, take that to the bank. And we just don't want to create any more confusion like we did last year. You know, that's very hard for people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. I'm looking through, let's see.
Miles, can I just mention something? One of the confusions I think, was whether or not next year was going to be singles, doubles, or triples. And Willie, I don't know if you want to answer this, but that it keeps coming up in the chat. So I just thought
Oh, yeah.
I would.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. Some of the stuff you're dealing with every day, and sometimes it's in my brain, so I don't always talk about it. So yes, when we started last year, we were looking at doing singles only. So that's basically taking a room that we normally accommodate 3 people in, only putting 1 person in it. So we're hoping to get back to is actually putting 3 people in that same room, which allows us a greater capacity to house more students. And so we're hoping that the single occupancy is off the table for discussion, that we can move to maximizing our capacity, which means that we sometimes put a 3rd student in a room that we traditionally only put 2 in. And we've done that for a number of years. We weren't allowed to do that last year. And so we're hoping that the needle is moving pretty quickly in that direction, and we hope that it continues. We want to be sure before we communicate to families, both incoming families as well as those of you who have students here now, that we communicate the best information that we possibly have. And it's a little bit more of a waiting period, but we're only talking about a couple more weeks until we get that June 15th date. And we feel like we'll have good information to make some good guesstimates at that point, to notify people early July about what their status is for on-campus housing.
Thanks, Willie. And then the only other thing I have to say is that I am on the board for the SB housing co-ops, the student housing co-ops. I'm on the board for them as well. So if you have questions specifically about that, please let me know. And yeah.
Well, thank you. There are some questions about the summer programs, the special academic summer programs that are going on, Jeff, that you shared earlier. Questions about whether those classes are going to be offered online or in person. So can you clarify that for our group?
Yeah, so the classes, the academic component for freshman summer start, 2nd year summer and transfer, those classes will be online classes, but the programs themselves are residential, and there will be non-academic activities associated with those that will be in person. We started planning for this back in February, and it's very difficult once things are scheduled to be remote to move them to be back in person. Unfortunately, it's much easier to go the other way. So were we starting this now, we might do it differently, but we're stuck with the remote classes, unfortunately.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Sorry, my internet was a little spotty for a second. So I want to acknowledge that we have answered literally hundreds of questions, but there are still more questions coming. So even though our formal program is drawing to a close, we are going to collect all of these questions, and we will be sure to review them so that we can address them in future written communications as well as parent events. Since we are nearing the end of the program, I'd like to just first turn it over. Are there any panelists with any final words you'd like to share before I turn it over to Dr. Clawoon? Well, I will be the first to thank all of you, including Dr. Clawoon, for your time preparing and this evening. Thank you so much for spending time. And again, thanks to our parents and loved ones of our continuing students. We're so glad that you are an active part of our community and supporting students. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Margaret Clawoon for some closing words.
Miles, thank you, and thank you for facilitating tonight's program, and thank you to all the panelists who joined us tonight for all of the information you provided, and to parents and families and loved ones. Thank you for spending some time with us. As Miles said, we will continue to respond to your questions. We hope you're getting the newsletter. That's one of the places that we can put some of the additional answers, and we will promote the programs for you that will be upcoming for next year, starting with the next one in September. And thank you for being part of the educational journey of your student and for working with us at UCSB. Thank you all for the time tonight. Good night.